I'm really excited to be joined today by my good friend Mehmet Oz. Dr. Oz is known around the world for being the voice to the new era of healthcare, particularly looking at it from a holistic global medicine standpoint. Oprah calls him America's doctor. We call him the world's doctor. Mehmet, welcome.
Thank you very much, John.
So Mehmet, it's great having Dr. Oz to talk about a lot of things. I'm particularly interested because you are so creative and your talents have touched so many different people in different ways. Starting with healthcare, I remember a quote from you which just really struck home to me, and it said, healthcare isn't going to get solved in Washington, D.C., it's going to get solved in the home. How do you unpack that idea?
Well, if you want to unpack the bigger concept of where we fight the battle for health, you have to first recognize that all the financial incentives push you towards a hospital, which is in the best interest of people like me who take care of you, and institutions that have been built mostly through philanthropic dollars to help support the kind of technologies that people like me can use to help you. But that's actually not where the battle should be won. In fact, it's not where the battle should be waged. It's unsustainable for us to believe that only by catching people as they're falling into the precipice, off the precipice into the crevice of death, should we pull them back up again, which is expensive, you use a lot of rope, sweat a lot, and it doesn't really give you the sustained feeling of wellness, of living your fullest that people really crave, which is why we have to fight the battle for health in our kitchens, in our living rooms, in our bedrooms, in our cars. Where we live is where the battle should be fought. We've never thought about it.
It's really not just about health care, but it's like on the one hand, you've got how do you keep people who are well be better well, and how do you deal with people who are sick with sick care, and we seem to sort of squish all of that stuff together. But I see a lot of what you have done that's impressed me is that you are showing people how to change their behavior.
Well, let's look at this whole idea of sickness and health. If I ask the average person walking down the average city in America whether they're healthy or not, if they're not in the hospital, they'll say they're healthy. But the majority of us are living at the 30th percentile of who we could be. And the real question is not what sour and dour advice am I going to give you today to make your life living hell and miserable, so you might live a few days at the end of it. It's what can I tell you today to move you from being in the 30th percentile to the 90th percentile, again, of who you could be. And once you realize, my goodness, those simple little nudges to what I'm doing can make me feel so much better right now. And by the way, as a side benefit, I'll live longer, I'll live better, I won't get cancer, I won't die of heart disease, I'll see my daughter get married, maybe have grandkids. I mean, these are the kinds of conversations that only now we're having because the pendulum of confidence in believing that high-tech modern medicine, which I trust and I use and I practice, is the only way for us to advance our society doesn't work. John, you cannot have a wealthy society if you're not a healthy society. You can't do it. And right now in America, one of the biggest battles we're facing is that it costs us so much to take care of the average person who isn't taking care of themselves, that drag on the economy strangles businesses. The automotive industry, the best example out there, where you're spending more on healthcare benefits than steel for something that theoretically shouldn't be possible. But we also are in an environment now that we are fighting huge political battles around policies, none of which will work if we don't deal with the fundamental underlying issue of this sickness in this country that's come from chronic illnesses.
So the figures I've seen is that about 5% of the population is about 47% of the health spend, and these chronic care patients have multiple doctors. They're going back into the hospital multiple times. It's costing the system a lot of money. Are you saying that you could deal with some of that issue by getting people to pay more attention to the health before they become chronically ill?
Well, it sounds simple to say pay more attention to your health. I should talk about that for a minute, but let me just answer your question very directly. Take diabetes. Diabetes is an ailment that affects between 8 and 10% of the population. But 80 million of us, a third of the population, have pre-diabetes. Most of us don't know it. If you identify someone who's pre-diabetic, you can prevent them from becoming a diabetic with pretty good certainty if you just practice a few simple little techniques. But if you don't catch them in time, by the time they are diabetic, they cost, on average, an insurance company $8,000 a year for something that could be prevented with a couple $100 a year at most. So the return on investment is quite clear. The question is, how do you influence them? So let's turn to this issue of motivation. People don't change based on what they know. John, they change based on how they feel. If I feel emotionally gripped with this visceral awareness of why it matters, I'll change. But if you're just finger wagging at me and throwing facts in my head, I'm not going anywhere. That's not just true in healthcare, it's true in life. Try to browbeat your spouse into doing something. It never works. But you connect emotionally on something that matters, like your kids, it's all in. We're all rolling the oars together. And we have to take that philosophy as we try to refine and redefine what healthcare should look like in America.